more news on the music. So while we out here talking about Black contribution to music, and this is the day of Juneteenth, and we're celebrating Black music, let's go and celebrate the homosexuals. And let's get into this topic, and let's talk about the queer contribution to the music industry. So Dustin Lance Bass, Dustin Lance Black, not Lance Bass, who is Tom Daly's husband. Shout out to Tom Daly. Is back with a brand new documentary called Rock Out. And he said that it was that he decided to make the film because it was based off of his brother, who was a hardcore rock music fan, but was also a closeted homosexual. I was like, okay, you better work, Dustin. I'm like, damn, the whole family was full of gays. So shout out to Variety for this story. So Dustin Lance Black. Wait, hold on, because I was like, did I just hit my camera? Okay, we good. Indeed. Dustin Lance Black not only directed the new documentary Rock Out about the queer influence on heavy metal, punk, and rock and roll, but he's also into it. I mean, he's also in it, and for good reason. The feature pulls inspiration from a New York Times article by Jim Farber that examined the queer influence on rock, as well as a question that Black's late brother Marcus asked before he died 14 years ago. Are there any gays like me? Now, Marcus was a queer punk rock and roller, but unlike Lance, who won an Oscar for screenwriting for the Harvey Milk biopic Milk, and is one of Hollywood's most outspoken LGBTQ advocates, Marcus was closeted for most of his life. He passed away in 2012 from cancer. He said, my brother was black leather clad almost his entire life, and not until his life did he cut his long rocker hair. He was in so many ways the model of heterosexuality. This was a guy who loved rock and roll, metal, and punk, and was also an auto mechanic. Now, Black admits he actually didn't know if there were any other LGBTQ people like his brother. He said, I didn't have an answer for him. You think, if anybody, I would, because I know the queer world pretty well. I couldn't think of any group of people I had met or known who were into that music. The music was so important to my brother. And I think that maybe before I even get to the rest of this article, I think the reason for that is because we as queer people or society, I'll even say like the outside world, I think a lot of times when people associate gay people, and I'm going to speak specifically for the gays because this is about a gay man and the gay influence and his brother. So a lot of people tend to think that all of us gays listen to Madonna and Britney and Kylie and the divas and all that other stuff, and we all go to the clubs and we're just like sweaty men up in like Studio 54 type of mega clubs and that type of thing, and that's all we do. And fuck all day, because apparently we don't have no jobs, we ain't got no life. We just fucking each other. So that's all people, the homophobes all think that we do. But for the most part, there are a lot of us out here, and I'll even speak for me. I'm one of those people that I had a hard time trying to find a tribe of, are there gay guys out there that like rock music as well? One of my other friends, Angel's another one who is big on, he likes to call that fluffy music that has no kind of substance. He calls it ketchup. He calls it ketchup music. So when you look upon it, it's like, yeah, were there many people out there? The only one I knew about was Rob Halford from Judas Priest. He was the only one I knew that was out and a rock singer. Also, there was a trans woman by the name of Jane Wayne County. I heard of her because back in the day, I used to listen to a show called Love Phones with Dr. Judy and Chris Jagger. And on Z100, she used to come on there all the time. And I think she would sit with them and they would interview her and then they would pick up phone calls. Love Phones, basically, for those of you who are not familiar, it was a show that used to air on Z100 from 10 to midnight. And people would call in and they would basically, Dr. Judy was on there and Chris Jagger was also like the co-host because he's a radio personality. And people would call in and talk about their sexual stuff. And she would give them advice on like, sexual things and just stuff that have to do with sex and relationships. And sometimes if somebody had a little discharge, what they needed to do. or just embarrassing situations like with masturbation. It was all kinds of stuff like that. So we didn't have those type of outsources where we can hear those things. So I used to listen to that show at night on my, with my little Walkman and get my life watching that show or listening to that show. But Jane Wayne County used to appear on there and stuff. And so, yeah, then some people, Elton John was another one, but was Elton John really rock? Elton John, I know he wore his little crazy outfits and he played the piano, similar to what Lady Gaga's doing. Well, the closest that we would get to like rock star types would be like the Madonnas and that sort of thing. But we never had like a real staunch rock and roll lead singer. Like if you were a fan of Korn or Nine Inch Nails or Green Day, like we know Billy Joe Armstrong is sexually fluid, but we've never known him to be like out here making out with dudes and being in a same-sex relationship. Because I think he's been with his wife all his life, but he identifies, I believe, as bisexual. So we've heard little things and stuff, but there's never been someone out here as a staunch lead of I'm an openly gay rock star outside of Rob Halford from Judas Priest. They also mentioned in the story that Brian Epstein, um, who was the manager of the Beatles, and there was a rumor that was floating. They said that he allegedly may have had a romantic entanglement with John Lennon. And like I mentioned, Rob Halford from Judas Priest. And then they mentioned they talked about the homoeroticism of Elvis Presley's swiveling hips and the trail blazed by Elton John. Now, and they also mentioned Jane County, as I just mentioned, where they tracked her down in Georgia. And she recalled being at the Stonewall riots in 1969, saying, I got there and people were raising hell. I said, what happened? And they said cops came in and they started pushing people around and they were doing sex searches on the drag queens and the trannies in there. And you had to show this policeman your genitals. And you hear all this stuff happening now where they talking about like that you're probably going to have to, with Project 2025 and all that mess that people they want y'all to come out here and start identifying you got to pull down your pants and show them your pussy and show them your dick, make sure you are the gender that you are assigned. And it's like, I'm not doing that. And that's what she was saying up in here. She said, she adds with a laugh, I guess they couldn't get any of the men to do that. Now, Black also requests and is granted an interview with the Dead Milkmen. Now, the punk group was Marcus's favorite band. Their music was playing when he took his last breath, but also infamous for homophobic lyrics and hurling gay slurs and AIDS jokes during concerts. But here's the gag. With all that stuff going on, did y'all know the lead singer, Joseph Gennaro, was a homosexual? Now they said my brother would be shocked and he would just laugh and probably light up a cigarette and just keep laughing. Well, that's probably where the cancer came in, no shade. But I'm like, when he said light up a cigarette and he died of cancer, well, I'm putting two and two together. But he said he'd probably keep laughing between them. And so it's the irony of it all. The guy that was out here with all the homophobic, gay slurs, AIDS jokes, all this other stuff, they're saying that the homophobic lyrics, but your lead singer was a closeted gay man. So it's like you're projecting that self-hatred, you're putting it in your music. Maybe some demons he was dealing with because, it wasn't easy, especially even now, I don't think, that you could be an openly gay artist, let alone an openly gay rock singer. And it wasn't until the 90s that Rob Halford came out. And it seems like at this point, people don't care. I mean, all that leather he was wearing on stage should have been a dead giveaway. But I digress. I didn't know. I was young. I didn't understand all of that. So, so now, Rock Out is produced by Bill Gerber and Live Nation Productions. Will have its world premiere on June 21st in the UK at Sheffield Dockfest, where it's also on the market for distribution. And he says, I think a lot of the buyers, distributors, and streamers out there are playing it a little safe. He's referring to the chilling effect that the ongoing increasing political attacks on the LGBTQ community have had on Hollywood. They're probably scared to put something that reclaims this queer space on air, no matter how good it is. It's going to be a bit of a fight to get something like this out there, but it's not the first time. Just to remind people, we got milkmaid during the George W. Bush era. So I'm hoping that this movie gets put out there. I'm hoping the movie, somebody picks it up, any one of the distributors. Same thing like with the movie about Dean Johnson that I still haven't gotten around to seeing. I know that they showed it at a couple of independent theaters in New York. My friend Daniel Nardicio aired it, I think about 2 weeks ago, showed a screening of it at Red Eye. and I still haven't I didn't get around to going to see it because I was working that day. So a lot of the times when I've been wanting to go see this thing, I haven't gotten around to seeing it. So I'm hoping that once some distributors come and pick this stuff up, because I do feel like in this day and age, a lot of people get their life, getting their education from, excuse me, documentaries, movies, whatever the case is, and we need to preserve the fact that yes, a lot of times in music, queer people and black people have always been at the forefront of pushing the boundaries of art. And the fact of the matter that so much of it has gotten, a lot of the queerness and a lot of the blackness and a lot of the music and the roots of it have been washed away for, by white people and heterosexuals. That's the sad part about all this. It's like I'm glad somebody that came along and was like, you know what? I was inspired by a question my brother asked. It inspired me to create this thing, and hopefully it'll open up. Once it gets out there, that it will open up this world of future rock singers who are queer that want to come out and express that side of them. Because no shade, not all queer people are into the Madonnas, the Kylies, the Celines, the Beyonces. Like that's not all the music they listen to. But that's the idea that, or the mindset, the mentality that the industry and the genre pushes on people, that that's the only type of music that if you're a queer person, you should be listening to. So in closing, he was asked, Dustin, what his brother would think of the film. He says he'd say it's really fucking gay. And that would be a compliment because he was punk. He says, I think there are things that would shock him because you have to understand that there are people who know that punk and metal and rock and roll have gay roots and that gay people have little homes in these communities. Well, CBGB was another place where you could bask in your queerness and celebrated queerness in rock music. But you being in New York, we get to see all of that stuff. And me hanging out at like the bars and the whole establishment of the East Village, I got to see that the queerness that played into the rock culture, the punk culture, that sort of thing. So being exposed to that, I was aware of it. But yeah, being able to see, like, I think more people need to be aware of it. So yeah, they went on to say, there are people who know that punk and metal rock and roll have gay roots and that people have little homes in these communities, but we weren't from a big city where people know. Oh, see, that's what you said. Like we weren't from a big city where people know these things. We grew up outside of San Antonio, Texas, and Salinas, California, in mostly military communities. We didn't have access to those sorts of people or groups. And I think that because of social media, this would definitely help a lot of the younger people in those outskirts see this and understand this. Because yeah, when you live in the big cities, we're aware of all this stuff. Like I said, coming in New York and being of the whole era of CBGB and that sort of thing, I was exposed to queer rock stars, or you would see like a lot of the parties that I would go to. Speaking of Dean Johnson, he would throw like these rock and roll sleaze S type parties. Then I had a friend that did like oh my god, I totally forgot the name of it. It was something with a fucker in the title. I can't remember the name of it, but it was so many parties that was going on in New York that kind of celebrated like that rock and roll sleazy. And then we had the electroclash movement. There was like so many things that was going on in New York. So yeah, I would see all those type of iterations of that world where it was very much a punk fuck you attitude and that sort of thing. And yeah, in New York, you're exposed to all of that because we were always out here pushing the boundaries with the drag queens and the porn stars and performance artists and a lot of those artists that I was hanging out with and stuff. So yeah, and a lot of the promoters who were out here doing those things and are still doing those things. So we definitely need a resurgence, especially in this day and age, what's going on in this current climate, the punk rock and that whole queer aspect of it. So I definitely want to hear from y'all. What do you guys think of this story in regards to Dustin Lance Black's documentary? I definitely want to see this whenever they get a distributor and it ends up on one of the streaming services. So I feel like I'm being buried behind my lower third. So whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments down below.